Good evening. Welcome to the first session of Keeping It Together When It's Breaking Apart. It's very good to see you. Thank you for joining. There are two ways that you can be joining us for this course. One is via our YouTube channel, and the other is via Zoom. If you would like to simply watch the presentation, then go to the YouTube channel. If you want to take part, then there's the option to do that if you go to the Zoom channel. I'd like to begin. If you haven't met me before, I'm Duncan Johnston. I am the rector of St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Westfield. Let me tell you why I decided to to lead this course at this moment in our lives. And the answer is because as the pastor of the parish, I believe it is my duty to provide for the members things that they are in particular need of at any given moment. And as I read the signs, as I listen and as I watch, I'm of the opinion that, the best thing that we as the church and leadership of the church can be doing for the people in the church at this moment is to help them to live peacefully in what is a very, very stressful and tribal environment. You don't need me to tell you that. You experience it in your workplaces, in your home life, and your social media, on your TV screens and your computers. You may be wondering, well, why am I qualified to lead this? And if you are asking that, it's a really good question to which there is no obvious answer other than I am a keen armchair participant in politics and current affairs. My master's degree a few years ago, before I was ordained, I studied in my thesis the relationship between Christianity and politics. That was in England at that time. But I got some expertise, but not a lot. When it comes to America, you probably have a much fuller view of history and culture than I do. I've only been an immigrant for 17 years, and I've only been a citizen for 2. So you might think, well, you might not have, your knowledge of some of these things will be greater than mine. And I think that's probably the case. And if you're in the Zoom call and you want to chip in at any point, just show me that that's what you would like to do. Let me also, for the sake of transparency, just tell you about my own position in American politics at this moment. When I became a citizen 2 years ago, I, of course, had the option of registering for a particular party. I did not do that. I registered as an independent. And the reason I did that is because at this moment in time, neither of the 2 main parties, their platforms are something that I am fully endorsing and I'm comfortable with. There are major things in each platform that as a Christian I struggle with, and so I decided to register as an independent. That does not mean that I don't have views on the current election. In fact, I have already cast my vote. I walked my ballot to the drop box at the end of the street, and so I'm fully engaged and with certain views. And if you want to talk to me one-on-one in private, I'll share those views with you. But that's not my role in these 4 weeks. It is to be a teacher and also someone who's going to facilitate peaceful relations, both within our parish and further afield. One thing I'll be doing quite a lot is sharing my screen. So here goes. Let's begin with some quotes. Oh, sorry, the schedule. Okay, so tonight we're going to kick off with what is political engagement and political conflict. Next week, emotional investment and how we form our political views. And spoiler alert, it's rarely through reason and often through other things. The same with our religious opinions as well. 2 weeks' time, telling the truth, a vital mission for Christians in the political realm. The day after the election, the 4th, we are actually going to take a pause for some perspective, which I think we might need within those 24 hours. And then the 4th and final session will be on November the 11th, where I hope we can get very practical in terms of how it is we live together despite our differences. Here are some quotes for you. This is so fresh, it was actually uttered yesterday. I'm troubled by our politics. It has moved away from spirited debates to a vile, vituperative, hate-filled morass that is unbecoming of any free nation, let alone the birthplace of modern democracy. and full marks to anybody who can use vituperative in a sentence. So that's Mitt Romney. Here's a cartoon by way of a quote, which tends to sum up how we view one another across our political divides. One person's glorious leader is another person's wicked despot, and so it goes on down the hill into the river. "34% of likely US voters think the United States will experience a second civil war sometime in the next 5 years." That is a very startling piece of data from Rasmussen when they interviewed 1,000 likely voters in June of this year. A third of likely voters think that we will have a second civil war in the next 5 years. Now, if that is not chilling, then I don't know what is. Here's a quote from the preamble to the Constitution. "We, the people of the US, in order to form a more perfect union." And that, I think, is such a powerful word, union. And, you know, the idea that we are moving towards something that's better than now. And that thing that's better than now is going to be union. It's going to be the unity of the nation across the states. And now some hopeful quotes. Thomas Paine, "The world is my country, all mankind are my brethren, and to do good is my religion." Love your enemies. So it used to be that we disagreed or agreed on facts and disagreed about their interpretation. Now, I would suggest there are no facts in our life. And so I asked the question of how did we get to this point where we simply can't even converse with one another across our political divides, let alone agree. And I've got some thoughts on this. Firstly, that there's the end of a common enemy. Now, if you're looking for someone to have an argument with about whether the collapse of the Soviet empire was a good thing or not, then you've come to the wrong meeting because I do very firmly believe that the end of the Warsaw Pact deal was absolutely in everybody's best interest. But like with everything that's good, there were some unintended and unfortunate consequences. And one of the consequences to the end of Eastern Europe communism is that we in the West no longer had a common enemy. You know, we'd gone since the end of the Second World War with this huge what we thought of as evil empire, and we in NATO, you know, were united in facing down that empire, and it kind of undermined so much of our, underpinned rather, so much of our public life and our policies, not just in foreign affairs and defence, but in many other ways as well. When the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, and for a few years after that, suddenly we had no enemy. You know, when you have a common enemy, that binds you together, and we have some purpose that is shared. We have an understanding of the world that is the same, and it actually having an enemy actually produces cohesion within a population. Now, of course, other enemies have cropped up in the last 30 years, notably terrorism. Has peaked at certain times, and that has once again galvanized us into having a united vision, a sense of unity. But then that's quickly died away again, and the disunity has not just returned, it's also come back with increasing nastiness. But the biggest, I guess, the biggest factor in how we got to where we are is the digital revolution. And several parts to that. 24-hour news channels. You take your pick, whatever whatever matches your particular beliefs, is that, there's one out there for you. Unregulated online news sources, and the best picture I could find for that was a garbage can. These are the kind of the pseudo news sources who are completely unregulated. No one is checking their facts. They're not subject to any libel laws. They can publish on the internet whatever it is they want to publish, whether it's true or not. And this, I think, is one of the most insidious and problematic factors that has come out of the digital revolution. The fact that everybody now is an authority, everyone has their own truth. No one's allowed to tell me that my truth is wrong. If I believe that the measles, mumps and rubella vaccine causes autism, then that is my truth, and it's just as valid as anybody else's truth. And then social media, which again is another vehicle where people can voice their opinions, claim truth, and is just out there. And if that's a posting that you particularly like, you can repost it. So many reposts that I've read, which I just kind of stop and think, really, did you even think whether this was true? So that's three big factors in the digital revolution that have made it increasingly difficult to be of one mind. Another factor is the end of truth. The democratization of truth has, I think, steadily eroded people's trust in the institutions and traditions of the country. So, the FBI, civil service, the military, police, judiciary are now all seen as being suspect and not worthy of trust. We in the church, we got that about a generation ago, along with lawyers and accountants. But now it's everybody. All the traditions and institutions that we have depended on are being publicly undermined. One person's truth is as equal as anybody else's truth. So it didn't always used to be like this. We used to watch the same 3 or 4 digital TV, analog TV channels, get the same news broadcasts, read the same local newspaper, talked over the water cooler upon agreed facts. So, for example, it was an agreed fact that Nixon acted illegally. It was an agreed fact that Clinton committed adultery in the West Wing and lied about it under oath. Where we differed was that, how to interpret those facts. Like, was this a big enough sin to make them disqualified from being president? Okay, so difference of interpretation, but the facts were clear. And after the press and society pressured those 2 presidents, they took action. One resigned, of course, the other went on TV and acknowledged his lie and apologized. That doesn't happen anymore because there's no such thing as truth these days. Another factor for how we got here is along with the end, or at least the decline of established religion, has come a placing of faith in other areas of life. So it's not like people stopped being religious when the church started to decline. They continued to be religious. They continued to have spiritual needs. They just met those needs, or at least tried to meet those needs in a different way. And in his groundbreaking book, Seculosity by David Zahl, there's a really excellent critique of the various secular religions that people have now turned to ask the basic fundamental questions about who we are and how we find fulfillment and meaning in life. And one of those, Zal says, is politics. So religion is, he says, what we rely on for enoughness, that feeling that, yeah, we're just complete, we have enough, we're happy. And politics is one of those things, he says. It gives us a reliable and consistent lens through which to view and interpret the world. And it gives us a sense of belonging, whatever tribe we're in, whatever grouping we're a part of, that sense of identity gives us security and that sense that we are in this as a community of believers, which provides us with solidarity and strength. So if politics is a new religion, a way in which people find some answers to life and find their belonging and their sense of meaning, then it's not really surprising that people hold on to their political beliefs with such a tight grip, and how it is they lose their cool very quickly in conversations, because they're not talking about just a vague belief, they're talking about something that gives them meaning in life and enables them to make sense of the world around them. So to discuss that can actually be extremely threatening of a person's well-being. So I'll just pause there, and if anybody who's on the Zoom call wants to make a point or ask a question, please do. Unmute yourself if you wish to. Okay, I'll carry on then. So a big question that you might be thinking is, well, so is conflict actually a bad thing? We're approaching this course with a basic understanding that, there's something not right. And is the thing that's not right the fact that we disagree? And I want to suggest that actually, no, disagreeing is not the enemy here. There is another enemy, which we'll talk about in a sec, but disagreeing is not only inevitable because, we're 7 billion distinct people. It's actually also very helpful for how we grow as women and men in our daily lives. And there's a very good book, very recently written, published just in June, actually, by sorry, we'll talk about that in just a moment. Conflict is, there are different levels of conflict according to the experts. A guy called Speed Lees, that is his real name, he has done a lot of work on levels of conflict, and he says that there are essentially 5, and you can apply these not just to the political realm, public discourse, but also to your own life, family relationships and so forth. Level 1, he says, is okay, everyone says we've got problems to solve, but we can do it. That's like the ideal level. If all problems are like this, that would be great. There's a level 2 where, we've got a problem to fix, but I don't want to be associated with it. I'm going to be cautious, perhaps not give my views, just be reserved. And I'm going to armor myself, just in case this gets a bit beyond the pleasant. Level 3 is, you must accept my solution. Okay, it's win or lose. There's no compromise here, and I'm not contributing to the difficulty. Okay, I'm the person on the side of right, and you're the person on the side of wrong. There's only one answer, and it's mine. Now, although that sounds really bad, and if you've been in heated fights with people, then this is a painful place to be. However, the good thing about these 3 levels is they're still focused on the problem. It's the problem that is the problem, and that's what they're trying to find a solution to. things escalate when we get to level 4, because the problem is no longer the problem, it's the people who are the problem in level 4. So it's not just I want to win the argument, I've got to actually kind of humiliate you. I've got to make sure that you slink away with your tail between your legs, with your castle on fire. So each then starts to think of the other as evil. It's not that their ideas are wrong or bad, it's that they themselves are motivated by evil intentions. And then the fifth, victory is not good enough. They have to be removed from the face of the earth. And this is the level where, absolute fanaticism, this is the level of the fundamentalist and the terrorist. We're not going to stop fighting because it's actually immoral to stop. We are so much on the side of right and they are so evil that we have to continue until they're obliterated. Now, I wonder where you would put our current political climate. No one's killing each other yet, or are they? I don't know. The arrests in Michigan last week may suggest we're not that far from level 5. And the 35% of people who think we're going to be in a civil war in the next 5 years, they certainly would say we are either in or approaching level 5. We're certainly in level 4. The sort of language that is being used of political opponents, it's not about whether they're right or wrong. It's about, that they are evil, they are monstrous, and so forth. So, is conflict actually a good thing? Well, I said yes, and I hinted at this book, brand new, by Melody Stanford Martin. If you're going to buy a book from this course, then make it this one. It's excellent, not just for the big macro problems like politics, but also for personal relationships. So she gives 4 reasons why we need disagreement. Disagreement makes us more courageous. All right, if you just surround yourself with folks who agree with you on everything, then there's very little need for you to show courage in life. And courage is actually a virtue. To face something that is unappealing involves courage, and having differences of opinion is often not appealing. So disagreement makes us more courageous. It makes relationships more durable. You might think that's a bit odd, but actually I think it's true. Friends or couples who never disagree, you kind of wonder just how resilient that relationship is. And is there actually a point of brittleness that when the first disagreement comes along, will the whole thing just fall apart? Relationships that have room for arguments, as long as they are then successfully dealt with, become healthier relationships. And our whole communities are healthier as well. So not just in the microcosm of a relationship, but whole communities that can debate topics peacefully, fairly, with respect. That's a strong community. And it also sharpens your own views, either by modifying them or by helping you think through them so that you're perhaps, have even stronger convictions at the end of the conversation. So it's the analogy is iron sharpening iron. A good exchange of beliefs on any topic, when it's done with respect and according to grace, everyone actually benefits from that. So the question is, if disagreements, if conflict is actually a good thing and great things can come out of it, what's the problem? And the problem is when loyalty becomes tribal. And here's how I'm defining tribalism. When loyalty to your group becomes so strong that you become blind to its own errors and inconsistencies. Okay, so tribalism is when loyalty to your group, and in this case, your political party, say, becomes so strong that you become blind to its own errors and particularly its own inconsistencies, because every political movement and every political party has inconsistencies, areas where they are a little bit hypocritical because they expect a different standard from the other tribe than they do from their own tribe. Healthy membership of a political party, I would say, is being able to see clearly the weaknesses in your party and actually not have the fear to say so. One of the sadnesses in this whole topic, I find, is that if you say, politically we are just hopelessly tribal and divided, everybody would say yes. I completely agree with you, right? 100% of people would say yes, that's absolutely right, and then everybody would follow it up with, and it's the other side that started it, or the other side's worse at it than we are, or their candidate does it more than our candidate, or something like that. Instead of just acknowledging, hey, yeah, we are all part of this problem, and my tribalism is as problematic as somebody else's tribalism, then we begin to realize that we're actually equal in this, and there's hope for growth. Martin uses the word crewism instead of tribalism. And this is how she defines it. The difference between us is more important than the relationship. How many families do you think around the country have been severed? How many family relationships have been severed in the last few years? I think very many. I hear lots of people say that we just can't talk to my brother, my sister, my father, my daughter. We just can't do that anymore. People who have actually kind of broken off relationship with friends and family members because the difference between us is more important than the relationship. In other words, crewism, tribalism. It's Thanksgiving in a month, and I wonder, this Thanksgiving in particular, how many food fights there are going to be at people's dinner tables. Beliefs and ideas can justify me throwing dignity and empathy to the curb. The purity of one's beliefs and purity tests, I think, are a very unfortunate and painful part of the modern political dialogue. We hold up, they're called shibboleths in the Old Testament. These are ways in which we can tell whether somebody's truly one of us, whether somebody is truly sound, whether they deserve the label that we attach to ourselves, whether they should be allowed fully onto our team. And you've seen it all over the place, where people say, sorry, you believe this, and so you're not one of us. And the reality is, if we're actually honest with ourselves, there are so many areas where we are say left of center on one issue, right of center on another issue, and defining who's in and who's worthy and who's out and who's unworthy is simply not the way to realistic, constructive relationship. Respect is circumstantial. You have to earn my respect. If I don't respect you, then I'm free to show it. I don't care if I burn a bridge. And that's clearly true in the kind of language that you hear so much, not just from, public figures, but, in the supermarket, on Facebook, the language that people use of people they disagree with. I don't care if I misunderstand, flatten, or misrepresent your beliefs or ideas, because my goal is to make my crew look better than yours. Can you see there's a thread running through all of this of dehumanizing your opponent? They are simply not worthy. They're not as important as your beliefs. I signal my virtue and loyalty to my crew by punishing you because you aren't a member. I may have biases, but they aren't important. What's important is promoting the agenda of the crew. I invest only in people like me because other people aren't worth it. My identity and our relationship are based on being in the same crew. If you and I don't agree, then friendship is over. Did you get a shiver run down your spine? Did you get a pang of guilt? Because I think in all of this, over our 4 weeks, if we don't take this as an opportunity to look at ourselves, look at our own behavior and attitudes, then, we're simply falling into the trap of assuming it's everyone else's fault. It's the other crew, the other tribe. So what I want us to do continually throughout this is okay, so I'm not thinking about that other person, whether they match up to this. I'm thinking about whether I do. What's God saying to me through all of this? How can I make things more peaceful? And here's my cure for tribalism. Because we are Christians, our identity is ultimately in God. We are God's children first. All our other identities are less important. This creates the possibility of disagreeing about politics, but remaining in unity. Okay, so think about all the things you are. I am a man, a priest, an Anglo-American, a husband, a father, a friend, a cyclist, a stamp collector. You probably didn't know that about me, did you? Don't judge me. A stamp collector, a Chicago Cubs fan, and many other things as well. But those aren't my basic identity. At various points in my life, I could lose or gain things that would change some of those things, some of those identities. But nothing's going to change the fact that I am God's child. And that's where my identity must be first and foremost. And only when that is the case can we take a slightly detached view of all those things that obsess us and wind us up and make us angry. And we can build bridges of unity with one another. Because ultimately, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, whether you're going to vote for Biden or Trump, ultimately, that's not as important as being God's child and being God's children together. So let's get really personal now. Here are some signs that you are placing your identity in your tribal membership more than you are in God. Okay, so ask yourself, be really honest now, do any of these fit you? Conduct you believed was disqualifying from high office when it was displayed by someone in the other tribe is justifiable when they are from your tribe. You disagree with policies promoted by the other tribe's candidate, even though you embraced those policies when they were promoted by your tribe's candidate. You will not vote against your tribe's candidate, even if she or he possesses character flaws or unethical policies that you would find unacceptable in a candidate from the other tribe. You are unwilling to be vocal about a policy or practice of your own tribe that you find morally unacceptable. You don't research the truth of a matter because you're afraid the truth will make your tribe look bad. You don't fact check before reposting things on social media. I can't see anybody's hand, but I just kind of wonder, did any of those define you? I think in my worst moments, those things define me. And it's a constant effort to be Christian, to place my ultimate identity in God, not in some political theory or party or candidate. To step back and say, am I really being, do I really have the highest virtue here on truth? Is it about being true, doing what is true, believing what is true, or is it about being right? Is it about defending my tribe, or is it about discovering truth? I'm going to stop sharing now, and I'm going to unmute people. And if anybody wants to come back with anything and wants to ask a question or contribute in some way, please do so. I can't find how to unmute. So can you unmute yourselves, anybody who wants to speak? Thank you.
I've certainly found myself not fact checking. And when it's pointed out to me, usually by my children, it's like, Mom, do you really mean such and such? And then I take it down.
Yeah. So where do you go to fact check? Because some people would say, oh, all the fact checking sites are all biased. There's none out there that you can actually trust. So why bother? But I think a good question to ask yourself is, with an open mind, without prejudging, does this actually sound like it could be true? Because many things you read about, that thing a few years ago, Pizzagate, where there was a conspiracy that, there was a paedophile ring being operated out of the basement of a pizza shop. And I think it was in DC. And this guy sort of went in there with guns and, was taken down by the police and arrested. And, you think, well, a paedophile ring being run by, I forget, but by famous people, from a pizza shop. Does that actually sound like it could be true? And I think, just does it feel truthy is a good place to start when it comes to fact checking. But of course, if you believe the other side is evil, then you're probably likely to believe that anything is true that's said about them. Anything else from anybody? If you're on YouTube and you want to type in a comment or question, please do. I can see it if you do that. Okay. Well, I don't want to take up all of your evening, so let's draw this evening to a close. There's a very nice prayer or blessing that I want to leave you with from Melody Stanford Martin's book, Brave Talk. Here is my blessing for you. May the impasse you find be fruitful. May the disagreements you engage be rich with meaning. May you know the strength and ability of your voice to speak hard truth. May you understand the capacity of your soul to see and be seen. May your imagination be stretched to share power. May you lead the way in balancing justice with love. And may you experience the depth, refreshment, and wonder of building resilient relationships in the face of conflict. In the name of Christ, we pray. Amen. Okay, thank you for being here tonight. I hope you found some of those things interesting and maybe sparked off some ideas within you. We'll meet again 7 o'clock next week, the same meeting ID number if you're going to be on Zoom. Again, if you're going to be on YouTube, go to our channel the same way you did this week. This will be available to view at any time in the coming days. So alert people to our YouTube channel, and people can take part even though the session is finished. So God bless you. See you all soon, and thanks for coming. Bye-bye.